the demand that is slacking across Canada, not just Ontario, but it's also in Ontario, but across Canada as a whole. And then we're going to get into what happens next, what to expect in the coming months. So we're going to start with the article of the day, the number one article for Toronto real estate this morning in the Globe and Mail, called "Toronto Realtors See a Slackening of Demand." This shouldn't come as a surprise for you guys that follow our show. We've been talking about this for the last few months, but it's making headlines now. House hunters from the center of Toronto all the way to cottage country are running out of steam. They talked about with Patrick Roca, broker of Bosley Real Estate, and here's what he says. It's definitely a seller's market, but not like it was in February and March. He says the frenzy is not there. Supply has increased. The number of buyers competing has diminished. So they say there's an opportunity here. I'll let you guys make the call of that. And I really hope as you're listening to the show that you're getting both sides, you're getting both views. Obviously, I have my own opinions, but I want you guys to at least see both sides and where my opinion comes from so you can make those decisions for yourself. But here's what they say the opportunity is right now. For buyers who are exhausted by competition, this could present the opportunity to buy with less pressure. Compared to what we saw in March, absolutely, there's less pressure. But as John Pasala says on Twitter, Toronto's housing market feels very slow and sluggish for a market with just 1 month of inventory. How interesting is that? To make it feel like a buyer's market when really we're sitting on 1 month of inventory, still under 2 months in the condo space. We'll get into more details on those today. But how crazy is that? But really, in this picture, as you guys are thinking about investing, maybe you're buying your first home or whatever, there's a saying among the real estate investment community, if you want to really look at real estate as a true investment, they say time in the market is better than timing the market. The longer you're in here, the better you'll do. But absolutely, relative to what we saw a few months ago, there's certainly an opportunity. But obviously, there's still a lot of people on the sidelines, hence what's been going on with buyers freaking out and waiting a little bit here. Maybe they're enjoying their summer. Who knows? How dare they? But Mr. Roca points to a house that he recently sold. Really paints the picture of the problem we're facing in Toronto right now. Winchwood Park area. It was sold $400,000 over asking. Oh, killer. Brutal. The property listed with an asking price of $2.249 million, and it sold for only $2.65 million with only 3 offers, right? But that's a slow market, only $400,000 over asking. But the main thing from what I'm seeing as someone involved in the market on a daily basis, as well as just from what I'm hearing, the buzz on the street, there's really 2 things that I see have changed. Number one is it's not directly offer prices that are low, but it's rather the bidders. The number of bidders is low, which of course equates to, unless you're TREB, in which case you think, well, that wouldn't necessarily change anything. Open bidding process doesn't affect anything. Prove it. But generally speaking, I think it's kind of common sense, at least in my mind, that when you get less bidders, you get a lower price. But the lower bidders is really what's the kick here. And there's also an increasing number of properties. This is number 2 that did not sell on offer night, which are then relisted in the following days with what? A higher asking price. There isn't much pressure on sellers, right? At least not at this point. Being able to relist is a little bit of a safety net. It's a good strategy if you think about it, but it really is, right? There's no backup plan to putting your property up high and then not getting offers. I guess you could drop your price, but anyways, there's a safety net that's built in there. Why not post it low? And people are still taking that approach. But what comes next, right? Looking ahead, what happens in the next few months? Well, Mr. Roca expects sales to be calm this summer as many people look forward to travel and recreation opening up again after Ontario's lengthy lockdown. Good for us, right? The biggest lockdown in the world. Number 1, let's go. Real estate prices, he says, will flatline. That's his prediction. You guys make your own call, but it's typical for sales price, by the way, to lower in the summer months compared to the spring. Obviously, we had an early spring this year as it relates to the real estate market. And so it would be natural to expect that overall prices would be lower than the last few months. That kind of comes with the territory. It'd be interesting to see what happens with the fall. And one question is, will the fall come early this year? There's a lot of things, and I won't get into it too much right now in my head, but this idea of vaccinating the world and immigration coming in, and what kind of policies will we have? And are they going to be available to come in time for school? Is it going to affect immigration? All of these things are going to play into the speed that we have a fall market, that, September, October market that we see in this kind of second bump each year. Anyways, moving on. People are putting more money than ever into housing. Listen to this. TD Bank chief economist Beata Saranchi, the senior economist James Orlando note that the amount of Canadians spending on their home now makes up 32% of total consumption on average over the past year, which might not sound like a lot, but this marks the highest proportion of spending on housing in nearly 50 years. We're really banking on housing. Both of them expect the Bank of Canada will further reduce its quantitative easing program in the coming months and signal the start of the interest rate hikes cycle in 2022. And I tend to agree we will probably see at least an attempt at increasing interest rates by 2022. That makes sense in my mind. But what is there to worry about, right? What is there to worry about? The plane won't crash. We're just going to keep coasting along. Even if it falls down, it's just going to go boing, boing, boing. But this next article is just in time for CMHC, who just revised their forecast up. They're like, yeah, there's some opportunities here. Prices are going to go up. Sales are going to go up. Well, right behind that, we saw Star had an article here called Real Estate Association Revises Sales Forecast Down as Prices Continue to Rise. And we wonder why people are so confused with the market. One second, the real estate professionals saying it's going up and the government saying it's going down. And then all of a sudden, like we have today, flip-flop, right? High vaccine take-ups and the falling COVID caseloads are cooling the country's fevered pandemic real estate market, prompting CREA, the Canadian Real Estate Association, to adjust its still record-breaking sales forecast down for 2021. We're going to do good, but we're not going to do as good as we thought we were going to do early in the year. Originally, they thought that from March, we thought forecasts would say 16.5% this year. Now we've bumped that up, slightly steeper climb of 19.3%. That's for price, sorry. So price up 19, originally was up 16, but we are going to see a decline in the number of sales overall, citing falling month-over-month sales in April and May. The association said Tuesday there is anecdotal evidence of offer fatigue. That's what they're saying, offer fatigue. Buyers are tired and frustration among buyers, but the whole country at this point over the last few months is a little drunk on real estate. At least that's what I'm seeing, right? Reminds me of that time a French explorer crashed his aircraft into the St. Lawrence River. He drank too much champagne. But let's look specifically at Toronto, because we can talk about Canada, who cares? What's going on locally? What's going on in Ontario? What's going on in the GTA? Well, CREA found that while Ontario had the largest year-over-year price gains, month-over-month growth has also slowed most here out of everywhere, compared to other parts of the country where growth has continued to accelerate. So in that way, we're slightly standalone. Obviously, a powerhouse impacts the numbers as a whole, but Toronto specifically has not seen the same level of price acceleration as smaller Ontario cities and towns, but it has only about a month of listings inventory. So think of this, guys. We're looking at this as a buyer's market. No way, not even close. Seller's market all day long, 1 month of inventory. But when you compare it with small cottage country towns like Tillsonburg, they're down to weeks. Forget months. We're talking weeks in these small towns. So what's the biggest unknown? As we're kind of trying to figure out what's going to happen in the next few months, over the next year, where's the biggest unknown and where's the biggest risk of rising prices again? My answer to that is immigration. The resumption of immigration, however, could be a tailwind for demand. If demand is getting tired and it's not coming in anymore, immigration could be a very good fill for that. And talking to Christopher Alexander, who is the Chief Strategy Officer of Remax Integra, said he anticipates a, quote, healthy 3 to 7% price increase. That's kind of talking from price, all stemming from incoming immigration. However, we know as investors, and having followed our show for a while, you should be aware, if you're not already, here's the FYI. Immigrants don't typically buy immediately when they arrive in Canada, and buyers are exhausted. So this combination means, yes, you might get immigration, but it might not mean an instant purchase of a property. In fact, the stats show us immigrants usually wait 3 years to buy. So let's look at Toronto versus the suburbs. And this is all obviously before we're going to get into which segment did the best. But just specifically talking about Toronto and the suburbs right now, he expects the pandemic flight to the suburbs, which has seen the biggest price gains right now, will slow. So all of this running, all of this getting to the suburbs, working from home, never going back, YOLO, it's going to slow. And people, he says, made a lot of COVID crazy decisions. I think there will be a cohort of people who bought in the suburbs or the country who are going to get bored and miss the action of an urban center. Just wait until sports come back and theaters and concerts He says, I have a strong confidence Toronto is going to return to being an entertainment mecca.